Well, hello, I'm Janet Morena, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, today we are going to talk about a lot of things that are very important to a lot of women. We're going to talk about abortion, its complications, and we're going to hear from an expert today who, by her own mistake of having an abortion and the trauma she had that she's going to tell us about, we're going to find out why abortion is not smart women's health care. Well, joining me today is a dear friend of mine and a Priest for Life ministry. She's been battling this issue for a long time, and I'm so pleased to have her come all the way from the West Coast to our studio here in Titusville, Florida. So Esther Ripplinger, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Janet. I am delighted to be here. It is good to see you again.
Glad to have you. And as I suggested, you did have an abortion. So help us to understand, because as you know, the secular world out there, the media, they act like this is a woman's choice and this is a good thing for women and it's women's health care.
Right.
What led you to choose abortion for you?
Good question. I was raised in a church, Protestant church, and I did not hear anything about what abortion was or until one series from Focus on the Family. But I was much too young to understand all about that. And clearly, my one opinion was that would be nothing remotely to anything that I would even consider. Of course not. And so that was the end of that. Nothing was discussed. I did not hear anything from church, from the pulpit or otherwise. And that was my background.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the problem is if we don't hear in the church that abortion is the taking of a human life and it is a sin, it's against, God's commandment, thou shalt not kill. I mean, if a priest or a pastor won't even open their mouth about it, what do you expect the young people to do? They're hearing from the secular culture that, oh, no big deal, have an abortion, go back to school or work tomorrow, no big deal. So then how old were you? What were the circumstances that led you to choose abortion?
Yes, so I was a virgin up until 18 and had a boyfriend for a number of years, and things went too far. And it was against my understanding, the things that I was taught to be chaste. I kept that for quite a while, but things went too far, and I did get pregnant very early in that process. And I understand now through healing, but I'll make the point that at that time, I had shame, I had guilt, and that was a key factor for me then succumbing to the suggestion that I should get an abortion. However,
And who
mhm.
made the suggestion to you?
Good question. Yes. When I told my boyfriend that at that time that that I was pregnant, that he was actually, we were actually excited about it, and we made plans on paper to get married and have our baby, and everything would have been just really fine. He went. He said, "This is exciting. This will work," and so
We'll get through this together,
that's
right?
right. And so that was comforting. It was stressful, but we were in this together, and so he decided to go to his parents alone to tell them. And then when he came back, he sang a different song, and he said, "You have to get an abortion. We can have another one someday."
Oh no.
And I was crushed, and those plans that we made on paper, I had to crumble them and
Up.
throw
Yeah.
them in the garbage, and that was just the end of who
So,
I was.
so it's his parents influenced the decision.
influencing.
And then tell us, did he take you to the abortion clinic?
And so
did
at that
he
time,
help you get the abortion?
At that time, I was 19 years old, and
Mhm.
so he had a job. They sent him away for training, and so I was supposed to take care of this while he was gone.
Oh, my
So I was
goodness.
all alone, and I arranged for a friend to take me. And what kind of friend is that? There was no
Right.
discussion, and it was just sad and lonely.
Right.
Later on, I learned that his mother also had an abortion. So there's some reasoning why she chose that for me. And
Yeah. Yeah, well, she
Mhm.
probably figured, well, if I did it, let her do it. And here she was suggesting the death of her own grandchild,
Mhm.
right? I mean,
Yes.
that's another trauma that we could
That is
discuss later.
so sad. Yeah.
So, do you remember about the abortion itself? I mean, did the abortion clinic tell you about anything? Did they, what was their care for you? Because the other side pins this as women's health care.
Mhm.
What was the scenario in that abortion clinic?
When I was waiting my turn and they called a number, I sat in a small room, very small, just enough room for a desk and a chair, nothing else. And this is supposedly a uh, consultation, but really was a sales pitch. And this woman, I asked about the baby's stage of development, and she told me it's just a blob of tissue.
Oh boy.
As I've heard so many women
So
tell
many
me
stories.
the same thing.
You
That
know,
is what they
And
said.
you know what's amazing is that, with the advance of ultrasound technology, that they're still coming out with that lie
Mhm.
today.
Right.
It's astounding.
That's right.
So do you remember the actual procedure much? I mean, some women recall more than others, but what's your experience?
Mhm. The procedure actually was the opposite of what I was told that it was going to be. She literally gestured on her arm. Most girls just feel a pinch, you'll be fine. And as I laid on the table, I was in excruciating pain, which came as a surprise. And I was not expecting that at all. So there was no disclosure about a medical, quote unquote, medical procedure. None
Right.
of that. It was really just that harsh. I was
Did you meet the doctor before the procedure?
absolutely not.
So you met the
Yep.
doctor when you were already on the table ready for him to do the abortion.
I remember I went out of my way to see this person who was performing this thing, and there was no introduction. He just went at it, and I thought, well, that's odd.
Yeah, like he would say, "Hello, I'm
Mhm.
Dr. Smith,"
Mhm.
and tell you a
Mhm.
little bit about what he was about to do to you, right?
Right. It
But
was
not a word.
exactly. I
Unbelievable.
remember more this woman who was standing by me to ensure that I didn't get up and leave. She wanted to hold my hand and try to reach out for comfort. And at that time, there was nothing else to. I was desperate for comfort, so I took her hand, and I thought, well, that's how can you stand there and comfort me when I'm in pain and this is wrong? But that was a really harsh. I believe I felt the sting of death in my most tender part of my body.
Yeah.
It was more than pain, but there was a sting of death. This life left me. That's what I remember the most.
Yeah. So now, immediately
Mhm.
following the abortion,
Mhm.
did you contact your boyfriend? Did he ask how you were? Did your relationship continue? Like, how did things work for you, like following that abortion?
Our relationship continued for maybe 2 years, and it was very rocky. And I know now that I nothing he can do to alleviate our relationship. There was just an underlying, I hate you for letting me go through this. And I hated his
Right.
mother. I mean, I'm a Christian. You're not supposed to hate people, but it was that kind of emotion. And I was struggling with even just that because we're not supposed to hate people. And I've been a very good person that way. But
All right,
there
so,
was
so
such
the
a,
relationship ended.
it ended. Yeah.
Right. And then, did life go back to normal for you? Or at what point did you come to grips with all these feelings to seek some healing from them?
I started college, and this was just before that, and I did poorly in school, and I was looking forward to this study, and I was just going to give my heart and soul to it. But after that abortion happened, I did not have the zest for life. I did not want to continue. It was very hard. I turned to substance abuse, and it just got a little bit out of control, and it was difficult to manage. Nobody wanted to listen. They said, it's done, it's in the past, put it behind you, move on. And I tried to do just that. I tried to stuff it. But even though that I tried to forget, but my body couldn't forget that trauma.
Right. So what was the healing program that you eventually found? And how did you find it?
So I ended up getting a job at Oregon Right to Life. I was
boy.
recommended by my church band leader, and I got that job, and I enjoyed it. It was their first week, my first week working there, and they had their annual convention, and I decided to choose to check out for no reason at all, complete denial. I chose this abortion recovery workshop to learn about it, whatever that was. And I sat there, and she handed out the handouts, and I looked at the symptoms of people who have distress, and
Right.
it just rang
You were going
true.
like, uh-oh, that's me.
Oh, that's me.
me.
Oh,
That's
no.
me. And I do believe that was a good friend of ours, Olivia Gons, probably was giving the workshop, and she's
That's right.
she's one of the pioneers with abortion recovery for decades.
Absolutely.
and
And she
working
is
for
a
National Right to Life.
dear
Yeah.
friend of mine,
Yeah.
you bet.
So, what abortion recovery program did you go through?
Well, it was offered through the local pregnancy center, and they've changed names by now, but it was called Healing Encouragement for Abortion-Related Trauma, and that's an acronym for HEART. And it was
okay.
at that time the Linda Cochran Forgiven and Set Free program. Yep.
Right?
It's a very intense Bible study. I know that there's a number of them now, so different tools but all achieving the same healing process.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, next step down the road, you've been healed now from your abortion, so you're feeling better about yourself. Probably, you're able to function better at your job and everything else. Because once all that trauma is taken away, you're kind of back with the Lord, and you realize His mercy and forgiveness. So you also then got involved with Silent No More, which I co-founded with Georgette Forney, because now you wanted to tell your story. So how did that happen?
Yes, it was dramatic. It was a dramatic change at the office there at Oregon Right to Life. And I actually shared with my boss, sorry I didn't tell you this before, but I didn't realize it too, that I had this abortion. So she helped me through that process, and it was dramatically changed. So as I developed this wanting to help other people who I healed with, looking for opportunities that we could partner with that organization to disseminate this voice that is sort of new. It was new in Oregon for sure. And we had speaking opportunities, and I found Georgette. I just think the Lord brought us together. It was 2002, probably right about when it was started. And we partnered there. And so I gathered gals who, like me, from our healed place, we could be active. And so I nurtured.
Be public
yes,
about being Silent No More.
Exactly.
Right?
And that actually gave us such a great sense of freedom that we could no longer live in that shame, that there is forgiveness from Jesus Christ, but there's healing. And those two are absolutely unique and separate.
Well, and you know what it is too, when you think about it, Planned Parenthood, the abortion industry, they still say you have abortion today, go back to school and work tomorrow, no big deal. Now, if that's the way they're selling the product, and you feel, oh my gosh, I feel this, I feel this, I feel this. What do you say? What's wrong with me? If all these other women are saying no big deal, why do I feel this way? So now with Silent No More, you realize, wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of us out here who regret our abortion, who found healing. And I think that's the beauty of Silent No More, is that those voices get out there. against this other deafening mantra of it's no big deal. To say, no, it is a big deal. We've destroyed the life of our child. We deeply regret it. And we want you to know there's healing too. And for a girl who's considering an abortion, you don't want to go down this road, right? It's a dead end. So I'm just so grateful for you, Esther, and for the many women and now men and grandparents who are all coming forward, part of Silent No More, and giving their testimonies so that we can change the hearts and minds, right?
Absolutely. And it's really just an opportunity to share the other side and put a face on the impact. This is not rhetoric and it's not political. It's someone's life. It's my life. It's the friends that I work with. It's our story, and it needs to be told. It's very important.
Well, then, of course, you also ran into another good friend of ours who started Smart Women's Healthcare, which I love that title because, like we saying, the other side likes to make it sound like abortion is healthcare, and we know it's not. So tell us about our dear friend Deb Tilden and your involvement with Smart Women's Healthcare.
That's right. So SMART actually stands for Science Matters in Abortion-Related Trauma. It is an acronym, and it really is trying to take back that language, take back the words and help people to think about it. So how I met Deb, we were both in Oregon at that time, and she wrote a letter to the editor, and I thought, I have to get in touch with her. And when I did, she was able to work with and kind of take over from when I left. I moved to another state, and she just had the same heart, and she kept nurturing this group, and to this day. So I feel like this just is another wonderful meeting, how God brings people together to continue this work. And I'm very proud of the work that she's done so far.
Yeah. And there's a great website people can go to. Tell us about that, the
Yes.
information that you have up there on that website.
That's right. smartwomenshealthcare.com or smartwomenshealthcare.science we started with. And there we have tools. Now, this all started because Deb Tilden told me about this book that is a compilation of 360 worldwide studies from people like British Medical Journal, notable empirical research, peer-reviewed, etc. This is all just undisputed science, and it's in this book called Complications. And Complications is a companion book to the award-winning film hushfilm.com. Hush. And Hush just is a documentary. It goes through about just forgetting the rhetoric of pro-life, pro-choice, just what do women need to know that's science, and that's what Smart Women's Healthcare, how it started. We want to champion this book and get it in the hands of women, or even leaders, medical people, pastoral, etc.
Well, you have a copy of the book right here.
I do, yes.
I've read parts of this book. I know Father Pavone has read it. It's called Complications: Abortion's Impact on Women. And this is the second edition. And my dear friend, Dr. Angela Lamfranchi, also is one of the authors here that pulled the studies together. And I do believe this is still available on Amazon. I think people can get it on Amazon. I highly recommend it because if you're going to debate, discuss, write a letter to the editor or anything, the facts you get from this great book is tremendous, But one of the facts, that I know it's in the book and it's documented, obviously there's the link between abortion and breast cancer is huge, and the studies are there. And then there's all kinds of complications. Let's just talk for a minute about the physical complications. So there's, of course, the link to abortion, breast cancer. But then there's all kinds of other physical complications. Tell us about some of them.
Preterm labor, so subsequent, the next baby that she has is highly likely to be preterm. And there are statistics that I don't keep up with. Deborah Tilden, ask her. It's all in here. And there is a fiscal impact to our nation and to our local communities when, for example, she's having trauma symptoms, a number of them, we can go through those, and she misses work. She has to be they put her on, different kinds of antidepressant medication, which is on the rise. And there's an epidemic of treating the symptoms, but not the cause. And that's why I'm a huge champion of abortion recovery. But we do have physical and emotional complications.
And like you just said, the preterm birth is very important for people to understand. Well, why does that occur? Well, if you've had a prior abortion, first of all, your cervix, which is that nice muscle that keeps that baby in the womb until it's ready to deliver, is compromised
That's
in
right.
an abortion because now they're artificially dilating that cervix prematurely to perform the abortion. So her cervix is compromised.
Right.
And then now, a few years go by. Now she meets Mr. Right. Now she wants to have her family. Wasn't ready before, but now she is. Preterm birth, and many times they end up having miscarriages early on before viability, before the baby can survive. So that's a huge risk. And again, the studies are documented
My
on
my
that.
own subsequent child, I had to be in bed that last month and a half, so I experienced that as well. I have friends, dear friends, who I saw their medical records: perforated uterus,
Right.
inability to conceive, next baby, like you said, you finally meet Mr. Right, and so on. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, promiscuity. For me, nightmares every month. My body didn't forget, just nightmares, waking up screaming. This continued, and I had no idea why. There's
Right.
so many. So
Well,
we've
and
had that.
then there's another physical
Mhm.
complication too. There's a pelvic inflammatory disease
Yes.
too, is very common, and that then can lead to leaving a woman sterile. And I do know some of the women from Silent No More, the only baby they were ever able to conceive because of then having that pelvic inflammatory disease as a result of the abortion, were never able to conceive a child later on when, like you said, they meet Mr. Right. Now they want to start the family because of these physical complications from that abortion. They're left sterile. They're unable to conceive ever again.
Right. And so when they say we can have another one someday, that really cannot, is in many cases not true at all.
Yeah.
So then, you go through life and your friends are becoming grandmothers and you're not, or
Right.
there's all kinds of complications generationally. And so it is constant reminders too.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it is. It's
Mhm.
people missing from the family tree,
Mhm.
right? I wrote about that in my book, Shockwaves, because that's been the real impact of abortion here. Because now she wants to have children, she can't, and like you just said, she watches her friends all around her, and they're having children, and then they grow up, and now my age, grandchildren, and they're missing all that. They're missing because of that one mistake, so to speak, that they were, like in your case, forced into having an abortion or convinced it was the best thing to do at the time. And it dramatically affected their whole lives, right? But right now, let's see, you're in Washington State, right?
Yes, that's right.
And you're now working for the state affiliate of National Right to Life.
Yes.
So tell us about your organization there. It's
Human Life of Washington. It's essentially the Right to Life office there. And we are focusing very heavily on abortion recovery. And it really is the message for this phase of the movement. And with my experience, that fits in very well. But this is the new phase of the movement where the abortion recovery has grown to such a degree that we need to, as a whole movement, really understand what all that is. And it has grown, over the years, and it really is something that we all need to know in the church.
Right.
And how much the normal person does not understand or perceive the scope of the effect of it from our marriages and families and the society. And so I think it really behooves our church to take a second look, and that's my job is to communicate that and to bring that
So
together.
what part of Washington State is the office? Is it in Seattle area, or?
We started in Seattle 50 years ago. This is now our 51st year, and
Wow.
I moved our headquarters to the Spokane area, which is on the other side of the mountains. And there's some dynamics there and some wonderful things that are happening, because I feel like this mountain has been in the way, and we are one powerful voice uniting for life, and we have faith that moves mountains.
That's a
Right?
great phrase. Because you know what it is, Esther, when people think of Washington State, just like New York, California, they think of those states as we call blue states, and they're in favor of abortion. So what is it like in that kind of atmosphere where there are a lot of people who have these liberal ideas thinking, it's women's health care, you should have abortion. So what is it like on that day-to-day trying to get your pro-life work done in that atmosphere?
That's a really good question, because I just believe that the leaders from our allies are uniting now more than ever. And again, this is a new phase of the pro-life movement for such a time as this, right?
Right.
And I feel like it's just a really good time, because we know that things are so bad, but and even in light of the COVID and all of those kinds of ramifications, we know who the people who want to stand up, and
Right.
let's find each other and unite. And that's a beautiful thing now more than ever.
Yeah. Well, I
Mhm.
tell you, I think it provides great hope for people
Mhm.
too. I mean,
hope
I'm
so.
originally, tell by my accent, from New York, and people used to say to me all the time, "Oh, well, New York, that's like the abortion capital." And I said, "Yeah, well, it might have been the abortion capital where Dr. Nathanson started the whole abortion industry." I said, "But not for nothing, but a number of years ago, there used to even be a Right to Life party, a separate line in New York." Yeah, which we eventually lost that line, because you have to have 50,000 people to vote on that line to keep it. But there was a time where we had a Right to Life party. They still have a conservative party in New York State. So I think what you're doing is a wonderful example. Don't ever give up on your state. I think that's the problem. People just sit back and go, "Oh, they get discouraged."
That's
Like,
right.
"Oh, why should we vote? Oh, they're going to win. They're going to." So what you're saying is a shining example
Exactly.
of you got to stick with it. You got to get in there. And I think the abortion recovery message is so important because it basically is a game changer to the other side. Because how can they deny what you're saying? You're the voice of experience. And all these other women who are getting now forward because of Silent No More and the other abortion recovery programs are saying, "This didn't solve my problem. Look all the problems it created." So
Absolutely. And I love what you're doing here on this program, and I commend you for that. And this is the voice for
Right.
just that. And thank you for all your work with
So
Silent
let's
No More.
remind everyone now for Smart Women's Healthcare, they go to smarthealthcare.com, right?
Women's Healthcare.
Oh,
yeah,
smartwomen'shealthcare.com for all that great information.
Mhm.
And I want to remind them too
Okay.
about this great book, Complications, available on Amazon. I mean, I think just about every high school and college should have this book in their library, and for students, because this is if ever you're challenged to do a report on the impact of abortion on women, this is a must because of all the research that's there.
It's very
right?
user-friendly too. It ought to be in
User-friendly.
everybody's hands.
And of course, if someone's in Washington State and they want to connect with other pro-life people, the website for your organization is?
That's humanlifewa.org. humanlifewa.org.
Then that stands for Washington. Well, Esther, I really want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Janet.
It was great having you, and thank you for being part of Silent No More.
Thank you so much.
And brothers and sisters, I hope you saw that in case I need a drink of water, I keep this water bottle here. It's what it says. I think you'd love this, Esther. It says, "Let God plan parenthood," instead of Planned Parenthood.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Well, brothers and sisters, these are great new water bottles we have here at our online store at prolifeproducts.org. So when you're out jogging and walking or go to the gym, this is a great way of getting a pro-life message, even in Washington State, telling people that God is the one who should plan parenthood, not Planned Parenthood. Well, thank you for joining me on Just Ask Janet. And again, we gave you a wealth of information. If you want to read more testimonies about other women like Esther, you can go to abortiontestimony.com. We have the largest collection of these stories of women who've been hurt by abortion, but now been healed and speak publicly. And maybe you know someone who's hurt from abortion. You can go to abortionforgiveness.com. Put in your zip code, you'll see where the nearest Rachel's Vineyard and other abortion recovery programs are, because we're here for you. There's no such thing as the unforgivable sin. There's help and resources available, and we want to reach out to you. And brothers and sisters, just remember, there are some abortions only you can stop, and some lives only you can save. Join us again next time on Just Ask Janet. I will be